This is no time to cry. This is a time to get tough and save your democracy. Whoa, what a way to start today. Well, it's important. If there's a theme of today for everybody, not just you or your friends, me too. Too much whining going on, and there's a lot you can't actually do. Welcome to it. Thanks for finding Wicked Radio. My name is Bill Adams. Monday, October 7th. A lot to talk about on this day, and obviously the most obvious of all is we're less than a month before this election. Most important of our time. That is getting thrown out by everybody these days. There's not a lot of talking points that are the same on both sides of the aisle or whoever you talk to. But boy, you hear that a lot. Most important election of our lifetime. And I 100% absolutely A to Z agree with that because it absolutely is. But there's too much whining. There's too much fear. There's too much procrastination. I don't know what I'm going to do. None of that. No more. And if you're not inspired by a guy that went back to the scene of where he was almost killed on a stage, came back before what's reported to be 100,000 people, man, I don't know what's going to inspire you. But as predicted, most obvious line in the world, he opened up with it because he kind of had to.
As I was saying...
Yeah. I got to tell you, I would have been extremely disappointed if he didn't open up with that and then he went to the chart. It was Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. And it was amazing because right before that, not only an increase in Secret Service, finally, thank you, not only an increase in security around him, like with the plexiglass and, local authorities and Pennsylvania state troopers around him, obviously. He also had the protection of what's estimated to be, according to some reports, between 80 and 100,000 people there. Now, that's a big disparity. I don't know which it actually was, but every one of those people would have taken a bullet for him. Every one of them in that crowd. It's pretty nice, too, because he got together with the family of Corey Contemporary and honored them. It was nice. And all the people that were arriving there, hours ahead of time. If you've ever been to a Trump rally, you know what this is like. You get there hours ahead of time, and there's all kinds of security you got to go through. Everybody... I think I saw 1,000 videos of this. Everybody taking a cell phone and looking up at the sloped roof to make sure that there was actually security up there this time, or looking up to the sky to make sure that there were, anti-shooter drones there, finally. And the prevailing comment from everybody was, oh, they can actually put security on the roof this time. I guess they figured out the sloped roof issue, right? But he did it, and he was there. And we were talking about our theme today where it's no time to whine. This is no time to cry. This is time to fight for your democracy. Guess who else was there? Like a rock star. And one of those iconic photos I'm sure you saw over the weekend, too, of Elon Musk. I don't think Trump even knew he was doing it. Behind him, as he was walking to the stage, jumping up in the air like a rock star. And one of those photos that made it everywhere worldwide that didn't really need a caption. He was psyched to be there. But back to our theme, do something about it. Elon agrees.
This is a must-win situation. Must win. So I have one ask for everyone in the audience, everyone who watches this video, everyone in the live stream. There's one request. It's very important. Register to vote. Okay? And get everyone you know and everyone you don't know, drag them to register to vote.
He's exactly right. That's what you can do. That first and foremost, that's what you can do. And it starts with this. You, me, and everybody else today, check your voter registration status. Make sure you're up and up. And if your registration deadline is passed in your state already, take it outward. Or even if it hasn't, take it outward. Find a friend, find somebody, and make sure that they're registered to vote because he's right. This is a must-win situation. Freedom is on the ballot. That's no exaggeration. And speaking of that today, okay, I've got a lot of people listening now, thankfully, very grateful for you, that are in different states. In Arizona and in Georgia, this is the last day to register to vote. A lot of people aren't even aware of that in those states because, listen, in Georgia, they're still dealing with storm damage. Distractions happen. Things get in the way. Arizona and Georgia today. We'll give a list of these each and every day as we get closer to the election for the last days to register to vote. And find somebody like Elon said there. Find them and get them to register to vote. And I got to say, I think we've passed the Rubicon now. You're not going to win some sort of a stupid Facebook argument trying to convince people why you should vote for the way you think. Just get them registered, and if you think that they're common sense people who actually do value freedom, tell them why this election is so important. That's what you can do. There's plenty you and I and everybody else can still do. And that's what you do today, because he's exactly right. Get them to register. That's how you fight. We've heard it said, freedom's on the ballot. This is a battle for safety, security of your family. Make sure this isn't going to be a one-party country. It's also anti-censorship is on this ballot. Your freedom to say and speak and write and to read and to listen to and to watch what you want, that's also on the ballot. Well, that sounds a little extreme, Bill. I don't think that's the case. Really? Well, let's listen to Hillary Clinton in an interview that aired on Saturday on CNN. And it's amazing time. We pointed this out again and again throughout this election cycle. Everybody is showing their cards now. Everybody. And it's not only on the left, it's on the right as well. When Hillary Clinton does an interview on CNN and says the quiet part out loud and says that this is probably their last chance to control the information that you and I and everybody else sees and hears and feels. Do you think I'm lying? Well, here's her in her own words.
We should be, in my view, repealing something called Section 230, which gave, platforms on the internet immunity because they were thought to be just pass-throughs, that they shouldn't be judged for the content that is posted. But we now know that that was an overly simple view, that if the platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever they are, if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control.
And there it is. If they don't moderate that content, she got all the platforms right, by the way, which means she's actually up on this issue. She may be the one. She hasn't gone away. She didn't win that election. Trump surprised her. I get it, in 2016, but she hasn't gone away. She's still very powerful behind the scenes. They may have put Hillary in charge of the censorship issue. Very well could be. And she said it out loud. The last part of the entire clip there was what it was all about. If we don't moderate this now, we lose total control. They're saying it now. They're desperate enough to actually say it and to say what they mean. Believe them. Believe them when they say that. You want an example? Would we have known, just take X, this platform, and this live stream airs on X before it lives on a post and winds up an audio podcast. Would we have known even a quarter of the stories that are coming out of North Carolina and the lack of FEMA response? Would we have known about that if, going back to Elon for a second, if he hadn't bought Twitter, turned it into X, and it wasn't a Democrat left-wing talking echo chamber anymore? Would we have known any of that? Would we have known any of the stuff that has been revealed in this past year? No, absolutely not. That's what they're afraid of. That's what they're desperately afraid of. Perfect example. Here's what happened over the weekend. I'm sure you saw this. All of the talking points, and you can pick any media outlet, digital or online, or over the air, about telling you and me and everybody else that all this information and all this questioning of FEMA, and they love to use this word, misinformation. That was misinformation. It's not the official administration talking point, so that's misinformation. Case in point, and like I said, you can pick any one of them you want, but here's one from just a headline from the Boston Globe on Saturday. After the deluge, the lies, misinformation, and hoaxes about Helene cloud the recovery. Are they? Or is it an administration, as admitted to by Alejandra Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, admitting that they diverted their funds? They didn't have enough funds to help these people out. That's why the first check went out was $750 whole bucks. Would you have even known that if the freedom of information wasn't out there anymore, if you didn't have X out there anymore, if you didn't have, even some other outlet, if YouTube didn't get a little bit better, and I mean a little bit better? No, you wouldn't have known that. That's why they want these platforms controlled. That's why. And speaking of that, by the way, a lot of pushback on these media outlets. This is another great thing that's happening. A lot of people aren't believing this claim of misinformation. They're pushing back. There's been too many videos. There's too many firsthand accounts. There's too many rescue operations from amazing people that are trying to get help to the people in Appalachia, Western North Carolina, even in parts of Georgia, to try to get them some help. One of those people is Tim Kennedy. This guy, if you don't know Tim Kennedy, and I think a lot of you probably do, he's an Army Ranger, Special Forces, an author. He's a podcaster as well, does rescue missions. He's a UFC fighter also. This guy's like a living, breathing superhero. He has been one of those people in the helicopters trying to get aid to the people stuck in Western North Carolina. And here's your firsthand account. Am I going to believe, or are you going to believe somebody like Tim Kennedy telling you what's going on? Or there's media outlets telling you, well, to doubt FEMA, that's just misinformation and that's just a hoax. That's why this information is so important. Tim was over the air again on Saturday. Might have been Sunday as well. He's still up there trying to get help. Here's his account of what's actually happening.
Why should we trust you? So,
Sorry.
I'll say this. Look, you can look at my career to know what I care about.
That's Kamala. More on her in a second. Tim Kennedy. It's early. Caffeine hasn't kicked in.
The volunteer side, I mean, if you're not like search and rescue, a helicopter pilot with a helicopter, and even that, it's getting really weird with federal agencies not allowing some people to do things. I don't understand it. It's make sure you register to vote.
Yeah. Back to that theme. We'll get to Kamala's interview schedule here in a second. I played that at the wrong time. But too many first-hand accounts. It's the bottom line. That's exactly what it is. And by the way, speaking of the misinformation, here's Pete Buttigieg, Transportation Secretary, over the weekend. Here's his tweet or post. No one's shutting down the airspace, and FAA doesn't block legitimate rescue and recovery flights. Well, we just heard from a guy that was in the air in a helicopter with a landing space. They know exactly who he is. It's a well-funded operation, but they won't let him do it. But that's misinformation, apparently, we were told. That people like Tim Kennedy can't get help to where it's actually needed. Okay. All right. Speaking of information, this is what I wanted to get to. Kamala, her interview schedule for the next, well, probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the election. It is all planned out. She's going to be on Stern. She's going on Colbert. She's going to be on The View. Wow. Now that's an attack interview, huh? Those are going to be some real tough questions. But what you heard there previously on the clip was her going on a podcast called Call Her Daddy. If you don't know Call Her Daddy, it is massively successful podcast. They usually talk about like relationships, sexual stuff, women's stuff. I don't know. It's massive. And to deny, I'm not going to sit here and deny the huge opportunity for both that podcast and for Kamala to go on there. I think it's actually a brilliant move. But once again, the criticism is apparently she taped this the day after Helene hit and all that flooding hit the Carolinas. That's one issue. The second is to go on there and yet be a full proponent of those kinds of podcasts you want to not shut down, but completely control. That's what the real issue is. You already heard this part, but here's a little piece of Kamala on the Call Her Daddy podcast. Here it is.
The volunteer side,
I
mean, if you're not like search and rescue, a helicopter pilot with a helicopter, and even that, it's getting really weird with federal agencies not allowing some people to do things. I don't understand it. It's make sure you register to vote.
At least it was worth hearing Tim Kennedy again. Apparently, I have confused Kamala Harris and Tim Kennedy for some reason. Good Lord, here she is.
Why should we trust you? So, I'll say this. Look, you can look at my career to know what I care about.
Oh, yeah, we can. Absolutely, we can. By the way, the host of the Call Her Daddy podcast there, which is, again, huge, is Alex Cooper. Not Alice Cooper, but Alex Cooper. That's a great question. That's a better question than I would bet you that Stern's going to ask, Colbert's going to ask, any of the dingbats on The View is going to ask. She very simply, because you can't weasel out of that question. You have to give it an answer. Very simply and very directly asked Kamala Harris, why should we trust you? That's a fantastic job. But what I don't think Alex or a lot of the other people who are online, all of us, fully realize is, as you just heard there in the Hillary Clinton clip, how they would love to shut everybody down. Not shut them down, but control the content the way it used to be. Not that long ago. Year and a half ago. That's what we had. That's where we were. Just saying. We'll see if Colbert or the dingbats on The View ask the same questions. I don't happen to think so. All right. I'm not going to let today go without honoring the victims. And this will, I believe it or not, lighten up here in just a second. And recognize that this is the 1-year anniversary of October 7th. The attack on Israel, just some stats here for you. They killed 1,200. they captured, and they took hostage 251. 97 are still held. 97 people are still held. Unaccounted for, anyway, I should say. 63 are, well, they're just captured. I don't know what else to say it. They're hostages. 33 that they pretty much are confirmed dead, but they, can't find a body there. And including this, and this is something that I bet you haven't seen in a headline in probably months throughout this whole controversy. You've seen the protests. You've seen the protests outside of the DNC convention in Chicago this summer. You saw the controversy on college campuses. Who's talking about the 7 Americans still unaccounted for? 7 Americans still. They think 3 are dead of that 7. 7 Americans still there. I don't think this would have happened. Trump says that on stage all the time. It wouldn't have happened if he was in charge. I believe him. And also, I think anybody that was first and foremost in America would have been home by now. But I'm going to leave you with this. And this goes back to our theme of today's live stream, today's podcast. Don't whine. You want to do something about it? People are doing something about it. But you got to look a little harder to find the good information, the feel-good story. And believe it or not, out of the October 7th story, there is some feel-good. There's always light out of the darkness. You want some? Here you go. Talk about fighting. Columbia University, probably the site of one of the first, along with Harvard, one of the first protest sites. The pro-Hamas protests is what they very quickly turned into, which have continued, by the way. Columbia donations have dropped nearly 29% to just $21.4 million in the wake of the anti-Israel protests. You want to know what you do? You want to know how you fight? That's how you fight. I'm with you. I think it's insane that they still get $21.4 million in donations, but it's down 29% of rich guys, foundations, women, and families taking their money away from universities that support that kind of stuff. And it wasn't. Maybe they started first very early on in the protests. It was just, stop the war. Yeah, I totally get that. They're college campuses. Quickly, that was completely hijacked by pro-Hamas. They were writing it. They were writing it on walls, pro-Hamas protests at these college campuses. How would you feel if you were a Jewish kid walking in a school and having to face that? And some of them were just blocked from even going to class. How would that make you feel? Yeah. So the good news, and I know it's a dark story, but the good news is people are fighting and waking up. Columbia donations dropping nearly 29%. All right, thanks for finding me. Thanks for finding the podcast live stream. Despite technical difficulties today, appreciate you so much. Hope you had a nice weekend. And don't forget, there's more storms to worry about here as Milton is now a hurricane bearing down on the Florida's west coast like they need anything else. Milty, Uncle Milty. So be aware of that. What a strange storm, too. Actually formed in the Gulf. Usually they kind of skirt around and they enter the Gulf. This one formed into the Gulf and headed to Florida's west coast. So you feel for those people for sure. This will live as a post on X, YouTube, and the audio version, obviously, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. Thanks for finding me and sharing it along, as always. And again, it's no time to cry. It's time to fight for your freedom. Thanks for finding me. Appreciate your time so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.